Envía dinero hoy con el servicio de transferencias de dinero Walmart to World presentado por MoneyGram. Es la nueva forma accesible de enviar dinero de manera confiable a tus seres queridos a través de la rápida red de MoneyGram. Con los nuevos cargos bajos para enviar dinero a más de 200 países, no encontrarás nada mejor. Envía dinero hoy con Walmart. Autorizado para hacer negocios en los 50 estados, DC y todos los territorios de los Estados Unidos.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Damn You Hollywood, where a couple of sad, lonely, middle-aged white guys review movies and yell at critics. No, wait, sorry. I'm the only one who's sad and lonely here. I am not the one who's middle-aged, however.
Mark, You never answered me. I asked you if you didn't mind if we took Wreck-It Ralph off the schedule, because I might need it. And you never got back to me.
Sorry, I must have just missed that. No, by all means, take it off. I haven't seen the original. I don't care to. If that goes off, go. Please, take it off.
It's off. You can go on with your intro now. Scheduling!
Has to happen every now and then. Yeah, so I just missed the message in the deluge of please, please, please hold my hand through Fact or Fiction.
That's right, everybody. I didn't do any of my homework, so I copied off of Winfree in math class.
This goes badly for all parties. I suck at math. Anyway, tonight Mark and I will be reviewing Christopher Robin, the latest Disney film that will probably struggle a little bit financially. Certainly not going to make any great impact, but...
It ain't going to be no Beauty and the Beast.
Well, of course not. It's... I'll get into that later.
No, let's be honest. It's not going to be a $1 billion blockbuster that has moms, their daughters, possibly a grandmother in there, possibly a great-granddaughter, all running to the Disney store to buy their own Belle dresses, okay? Because nobody has quite gotten over that movie, and no girl that sees it ever forgets it. Beauty and the Beast was a monster at the box office. It made over $1 billion, and Winnie-the-Pooh doesn't have a dress. If Winnie-the-Pooh had a dress, maybe girls would go to see it, and it would make $1 billion. But it don't have no dress. Winnie-the-Pooh got a balloon, no dress. Therefore, it only makes maybe a couple of $100 million.
We do need to genuinely have that discussion at some point as it pertains to Disney's general failure with boys again, because, I mean, fundamentally, I mean this only in the context that Winnie-the-Pooh is a fundamentally masculine story. It is not just this movie, but like all the... It's not that girls can't enjoy them or don't enjoy them. I don't presume to speak for anyone other than myself and my own personal experiences here. But they are generally more aimed at boys than they are at girls. I think that's safe to say. And I mean, for some reason, Disney always seems to struggle when it comes to appealing to the male demographic.
Can I offer a counterpoint to that? They don't have to cater to boys. They bought 2 divisions that cater to boys. One's called Marvel, the other one's called Star Wars. That was
and
the
they're going
point.
They're going to spend all of like Phase 4 and 5 alienating all the young men. Like, I imagine that there's going to be a board meeting in Disney at some point, and you're going to have like Michael. I don't know who's in charge of Disney at the moment, but he's going to be at the proverbial blackboard going, I think we need to try an Asian version of the Incredible Hulk. And then we're going to mime a scene from The Simpsons where Skinner's looking at the lunch menu and goes, spaghetti's doing well on Tuesday, but I think it'd do just as well on Thursday. And then groundskeeper Willie pipes up with, that's what you said about the mac and cheese move, and you nearly lost the young meals. And there's going to be something like that where I think we need a little bit more. We need more. We need to diversify some more. We should try the Totally Awesome Hulk, and somebody in this meeting is going to stand up and go, that's what you said about X, Y, and Z, and you lost the male demographic. Sit down and shut up.
In defense of, I think Marvel will be fine with boys, if one would make the argument that Black Panther really only speaks to the black youth of America, I submit to you my kids who, for a while there, Black Panther was the only hero they were excited about. I mean, Spider-Man and now Spider-Gwen hold a prominent place in this household. Spider-Man is always and forever going to attract young boys. There's just something about him that I think, boys gravitate to of all generations. Whether you're a comic book fan or not, there's just something about Spider-Man. Same thing with Batman on the other side. That being said, again, if Black Panther, if you would pitch the idea that Black Panther, is really a sort of a subgenre that only speaks to black kids, both my lily white children loved Black Panther, wanted Black Panther toys. One's got a Black Panther T-shirt, and will be just as excited for Black Panther 2 as they'll be for Captain Marvel when that movie comes out. And and it's not as if they're running out of white heteronormative heroes for the boys. You've got more Doctor Strange coming. You've got more Spider-Man coming. It'll be fine. Marvel's fine. The boys are fine.
$20 as they make Doctor Strange gay. No, I mean this in all seriousness. Like, okay, we're starting to reach out with these. We need a non-sexual. We need a non-normative, sexually oriented hero. Let's not actually make anything new. But Benedict Cumberbatch is down to play whatever. It wouldn't be too hard to give him and Wong a thing. Well, sure, let's write that in.
Listen, to the 20 people who listen to our show, before we lose them, let's get on with this.
All right. Anyway, again, we are discussing Christopher Robin this evening, so let's go ahead and jump into this. This is going to be an interesting exercise for me because I get to try and put into practice what I preach so regularly on this show. Trying to separating from a discussion standpoint my personal experience with what I believe are the objective criticisms of this film. So again, this should be fun. I'm looking forward to trying to do that, and at least proving to all you hacks out there, and I know who you are, I've encouraged you to be assaulted with fish and poultry in the past, that this actually can be done by reasonable people. All right. Anything you wanted to touch on before we get into the plot synopsis here, Mark?
My wife and daughter saw Mamma Mia 2 over the weekend.
On that non sequitur.
Hit it, Darren.
All right. We open this movie with the closing of the traditional Winnie-the-Pooh stories, which is Christopher Robin's farewell to the 100-acre wood. He's going off to boarding school. We then get, during the opening credits, we see everything that he's been doing growing up. His time in boarding school, where his spirit is crushed because evil British boarding schools. The loss of his father, his time serving in World War II, his wife, the birth of his daughter, more or less. and his general descent into being a stereotypically work-driven, emotionally distant drone. That, ooh, bad, how dare you work.
A British guy.
I do want to talk about some of the mixed messaging that does not get adequately addressed in this film, because I do think it's important that we discuss some of that. But cut to him trying and reconnect with his family. He's a workaholic. He hates his neighbors. I completely empathize. His family is going away for the weekend. They've been planning this, and then it turns out that the owner of the company he works at, his douchebag son, and credit to Mark Gatiss, who is just a slimy human being and plays one very well on television, that now we have to cut 20% of our costs and associated things, and everyone's going to spend the weekend working on this, except for me. I will take mostly credit while golfing. Because, people born with money and privilege and grr, arg. God. That annoyed me a little bit, but this leads to further strife between Christopher and his family. Understandably, his wife is kind of pissed. And as he is indulging in this work, we finally get the reintroduction of Winnie-the-Pooh, who wakes up from hibernation or some such. Can't find anyone else who inhabits the 100-Acre Wood, and begins looking for them, stumbles across the door to our world, wanders through it looking for Christopher Robin, because that's the access point that Christopher Robin always came through. Doesn't immediately see him, but runs across him as Christopher Robin desperately avoids his neighbor and his neighbor's fixation on the card game Gin Rummy. It's not healthy, man. It's just not healthy, that guy. They reconnect. Christopher Robin promises to get Pooh home because he can't go back through the same tree that he came in through, so they travel to the same cottage that his wife and daughter are at to return Pooh to the 100-Acre Wood. They both go there, and Christopher Robin, feeling at least a twinge of emotion after years of having it slowly deadened by an oppressive workforce and just being British, I assume, goes back with him to help him find his friends. There's some consternation that happens. We see a bit more of the depths to which he has abandoned all things good and wholesome in the world. It's a gross exaggeration, but that's the way it's presented. He eventually helps them. He eventually finds all of his lost friends, regains a bit of what it means to be a child, what it means to imagine, to play, to have fun, reconnects with all of them, leaves to go back to the real world where he has, business presentations and bills to pay and a family to take care of. But it turns out his work-related documentation was not returned to him upon his leaving. So Pooh and Piglet and Tigger and Eeyore set off to find him. They run across his daughter, who decides to help them. They race back to London. There's minor people missing each other at random intervals moments. There's some amusing bits with the animals being recognized as being, alive, and people just how they react to that. My favorite one was the taxi driver after they crashed into the newsstand, and the police officer that comes over, and this newsie and the cab driver, they all see and hear some of the animals, and then they all just look at each other and, nope, that didn't happen. Absolutely not. There's no way the donkey talked. Christopher Robin and his wife find their daughter, but she, of course, loses all the paperwork in a tragic slip-and-fall accident. However, this is able to spawn the creative moment of genius necessary for Christopher Robin to save everyone's job and the factory and the farm and other things. He takes his family to the 100-Acre Wood and moves forward in life, being a much more well-balanced individual now, and living happily ever after, etc., etc., etc. All right, Mark, is there anything I gave short shrift to there?
Just that it's a minor detail, but I think it's a detail worth focusing on for just a minute. He didn't just not get his papers. Tigger put in the bag things to remember. To
remind it. That's true. That's fair.
Remember his friends from the 100-Acre Woods. And it was symbolic of the idea that one should not forget their family and friends and what's important to them. You know, as I say to people that I work with, the work's going to be there in the morning. Go home and be with your family.
As you stay long, lonely nights in the county jail, desperately trying to avoid your screaming children.
No, the joke would have been, as I go home, proceed to throw my kids in both of their rooms, tell my wife to go take a shower, and watch Weeds on the couch. By myself. Where I wanted to be in the first place.
Weeds is so bad.
Ugh. Moving on. So anyway.
That's fair. Okay, so what I want to say about this, and I will use this as a lead into whatever you want to say. This movie is not about the plot. The plot's weak.
Oh no!
It's one of my big gripes. It's one of my big gripes with this movie. The magic of this movie is in the performances, be that live action or voice. And first of all, Ewan McGregor's awesome. My only gripe, I'm so torn on this voice acting choice because they got Brad Garrett to play Eeyore.
Oh, he did fine.
Hang on, no, here's my gripe. If memory serves, Eeyore was originally voiced by Peter Cullen, who is still actively doing work.
And just might not want to do Eeyore again.
Maybe, but if he just decided not to, fine, his choice. I almost won, but if they didn't at least make an effort to get Peter Cullen back for this, I'm like profoundly annoyed with this movie for that because I mean, what are you gonna do? I mean, the guy's like he still voices Optimus Prime for Transformers. Like he's still working.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that is Peter Cullen. That's right.
And if the decision was just, hey, Brad Garrett's a funny dude. I mean, look, being the second funniest thing on Everybody Loves Raymond behind Peter Boyle, and the fact that literally nothing else about that show is even remotely entertaining, is it's just kind of sad. I mean, I like Brad Garrett generally speaking, but if there wasn't even an effort made to get Peter Cullen back, that's just sad. Anyway, so where do you want to start with this? What do you want to praise? What do you want to critique?
Look, let me just come right out and say I probably wouldn't have even gone to see this if we weren't reviewing it or my kids didn't want to see it. And I'll tell you the conversation my wife and I had after we took the kids to it was, we understand that it's a Disney movie and it's a Disney movie about a character that's directed for children. This movie was not a kids movie. This was a movie aimed for parents. Okay, I feel like whoever people who are grown adults who were who loved Winnie-the-Pooh and have a fascination for Winnie-the-Pooh and love the old cartoons and books and whatnot. Obviously, they're included, but I feel like when they were figuring out this movie, they were like, let's target kids' parents, and maybe they'll be dumb enough to bring their kids too. But ultimately, we're talking to them. Because the movie is as Robert said, it's about a guy who loses his sense of self and what's important to him, and he ends up becoming, despite himself, distant from his family, and it's about sort of reclaiming that sense of self and rejoining his family again, reprioritizing his family over work. And I mean, in the sense that as a dad and a husband, you got to go out, you got to do these things. You can't do like I wanted to do today and just quit your job and go join the circus. You can't. You have responsibilities. You have a mortgage.
I mean, you could, but
you really can't, though.
Isn't that what you did to your first wife, though?
No, I did not quit and run I did not. I may have run away, but I certainly did not join the circus. In any case, you funny guy, you. the point.
Look, if we're still doing the show when my first marriage fails, I expect you to joke about it on occasion as well. Just to be clear,
it's fair enough. The point is that the movie was way over the head of both my kids. Like they were able to find the chase scenes funny, and they enjoyed seeing the Winnie-the-Pooh character come to life and everything. But these long, maudlin, drawn out moments of Ewan McGregor, arguing with himself and coming to grips with the reality that he's been a terrible dad by being an absent father. My kids are just like, when's Tigger coming back? And look, my son was kind of like, yeah, it was cool, it was fine, I enjoyed it. My daughter and I, who cry at the end of everything, apparently, that's the commonality that we have as father and daughter. She cried, I ugly cried, we all hugged at the end of it, and then we went out to get Tex-Mex. Outside of that, look, it's a well-constructed movie on a physical level where I thought the characters all looked good. The costumes were fine. The sets were fine. The 100-Acre Woods looks great. Despite,
I don't know where they found that location, but whoever found it did an awesome job.
It looks magical. It had that sense of wonder to it.
It has this great thing of being both magical and real.
Yeah,
That's such an unbelievably difficult thing to get right.
Yeah, I almost use the word like mundane, but that's not really what I'm going for. Like, look, woods is woods, but it had this otherworldly sense to it. That even though he was just, going to the 100-Acre Woods seemed otherworldly, even though it was still just a forest. Which was great, which is exactly what you wanted. So kudos to the set designers and builders and location scouters. You guys did an awesome job with this. Ewan McGregor, Hayley Atwell, the kid who played the kid, all of them great performances. This couldn't have been a more. As far as plots go, you're not going to get much lighter than this. This is every. There are a zillion movies with the exact same plot that end the exact same way.
Oh, yeah.
Right down to the boss who said he was coming into work but really went to go play golf. That's the thing. It happens in lots of movies. So it was like, on the one hand, I felt like this was they put together a list of all of their Disney properties and said, what can we make real life movies out of? And they were like, okay, well, Winnie-the-Pooh's popular. Well, we got to do that one. And, it might even be relatively cheap to make. And it was. And so not much more effort was put into it than that. On the other hand, look, any movie that touches you emotionally, even as one as maudlin as this one, is still a good movie. So, at least on the scale that it's entertaining. So, solid B for me. Wasn't great. Wasn't awful. It was just kind of there, but there in really nice ways.
Yeah, it's again this is the thing where I have to kind of separate, because first of all, full disclosure, Winnie-the-Pooh was the movies from Disney, some of the other stories, big parts of my childhood. I think I developed a significant amount of my love of language from those. Because I loved Owl, listening to him talk, because he used such superfluous language. To be fair, I think the wordplay in this is one of the strong suits. It's probably one of the reasons why it goes over the heads of so many kids. And this is not about kids me grumbling about kids these days. There's some of that, but not a lot. But it is designed to, poke at your funny bone on an intellectual level rather than a pie in the face level. Which is fine. I prefer that personally. And again, further personally, so any time like Christopher and Winnie-the-Pooh are just like together in the 100-Acre Woods, I was a mess. I'm just like trying desperately not to break down into great heaving sobs in the middle of this theater with other people in it. Just kind of going, just didn't want to, do that. And So again, on that level, it's a very successful film. Again, on plot, not so much. I think my big issue with the narrative, and part of this deals with the fact that I agree with you, this is actually more aimed at adults than it is at children. So the ending becomes a little bit too... I mean, even for this movie, it becomes too sappy. It becomes too syrupy. It's too saccharine. It's too perfect. A kid's movie that ends this way, sure. If you're aiming this at adults or even families, there's a lot to be said for, and what the movie is trying to tell you about is striking proper balance, about, properly weighting things. And the reality is that, and I hate to, not to overly go into stereotypical gender roles for all the people who listen to this who care about that shit. It is traditionally the male's job to provide. And there is value to that. There is nobility in that. The problem becomes when it goes to excess. And I think in attempting to express that it is that family is more important than work, and it is. I just believe that fundamentally. Historically, that's borne out historically and sociologically. The reality is that there is something to work that is also in and of itself noble, and I think the only thing we get about that is at the end when he comes up with the perfect solution to this problem.
Which I thought was... I had trouble with that, I have to be honest with you. I mean, I got what he was saying, but he was just like, but it's like you just provided sort of a grander social economic solution to moving money around and generating sales in an economy to a single company. And like short term, sure, maybe the people who work in that company go on vacation and buy the luggage, but that's not going to solve all your problems.
I mean, there's a much better argument for him to be making that if we need to appeal to those beyond the wealthy. There's a serious cap if we keep our price point where it is.
Yeah, I was okay with that, but him just limiting it to just the luggage thing, I was like, oh, this is just shitty writing.
Yeah. We need a happy ending to this part of the narrative. What's the happiest ending we can come up with? It's this. Yay. No. Sorry. That's honestly where it kind of falls down for me, because you and I talked a little bit about this off air. I would have so much preferred if he goes in and says, you need to cut operating costs by 20%. Your loser son here represents 10%, give or take. I represent 8%. You cut the both of us. You can keep the majority of your workforce. If you fire the point being, if you fire the two of us, the rest of it can be done point by point, detail by detail. Then you still have the villain, such as he is, getting his comeuppance. You have, if you want to drive the narrative towards Christopher finding a more fulfilling works than simply being, the efficiency manager. As soon as he said that, I went, "What a bullshit title!" and I know that it's that because I know it actually exists. Like, you just know there's some places out there that have whole departments that are efficiency departments.
Yeah, they go by a different name, but
which is such a profoundly redundant thing to begin with.
Yeah, but I mean, look, as somebody who's worked for a number of different corporations, believe it or not, throughout the field of social work, there are absolutely entire, if not departments, at least a handful of people or person dedicated to just watching productivity and how can we mine more productivity out of our workers.
Oh, I know that it's happened. I know that it's a real thing. It just further sorts that these are stupid things. You should feel badly about this on some level.
I'm not having that debate with you. I don't really have a problem. It's a weird thing for you who has, who at least favors capitalism to be like, yeah, why wouldn't you want somebody kind of examining all the different ways you could be more productive? You commie.
Because I just can't help but feel like the first thing you have to cut in a financial downturn is actually your efficiency department. Like, there's that scene from The Office, right, where Michael Scott has to
knew you were going to bring that up.
So he goes to the accounting department and says, I need you to find, someone's employment in the books. And they all start going through them, and then one of them at one point goes, there actually is one department here where 3 people are doing the work of 2. They'll go, oh, great, which one? And then look at each other and realize, oh, crap, it's us.
Yeah. How much more do we have to say about this? Because, like I said, it was
a couple. I think there's just a couple of things I want to bring up.
Okay.
Again, it looks good. I think Eeyore gets the most laughs, which is not shocking.
Eeyore was fucking hysterical.
Eeyore's always been the best character. Like, regardless of the fact that I just fundamentally identify with the depressed, fatalistic.
I had a couple of good belly laughs with some of his one-liners, and so did my wife. Actually, I think it irritated my kids
when he's floating down the rivers, going, you can't fight the inevitable.
Right.
Just go into the waterfall.
Thanks
Can't
for
do
noticing.
anything about it.
Yeah.
Thanks for kidnapping me.
He had
stuffed into a bucket and pulled out like I was just starting to get cozy.
Right, yeah. And it's so funny because it made my wife and I laugh a bunch of times. My kids, I think they were just kind of waiting for Tigger to show up.
The younger you are, the more you like Tigger because he just bounces. The older you get, the more you appreciate. Well, I think Eeyore.
Well, not only that though, but I think like each one of those characters really does speak to like a personality trait. And a developmental age.
Have you read The Tao of Pooh? It's great.
I know. I have not read it, but I know it relates to that. But more specifically, like I know you have younger brothers. I don't know if you were as cognizant of their behaviors when they were younger, but like my 4-year-old and Tigger are the same guy. My son says, "Let's wrestle," and then he says, "But here are your rules. You can't do this, this, and this, and I have to win." And then I beat the shit out of him because it's like, okay, I'm not going to play by those rules. Fuck you. But
what a great thing to teach your son.
Yeah, you want to wrestle? You better prepare to defend yourself. I'm not playing by no stupid rules. Except for the no small joint manipulation because he does love to do that. And I keep telling him that's illegal. You can't do small joint manipulation. But man, he does like to grab a finger and just yank on it.
Hey, look, it's great that you know how to do that if you actually have to. It's just the dirt worse if you're just playing around with someone. Oh, grab, yank. Like, no.
But that's my son for you. Daddy, let's play a game. And then gets mad if you win. But like before the game starts, I'm the super bestest of this at all time in all the universe. And loses instantly. It's just like, oh, I don't know why we play this game. Like, wow, you're Tigger.
Yep.
We actually walked out of the movie, and we were assigning ourselves Pooh characters.
Dude, I've been Eeyore since I was like 8. I vacillate between Owl and Eeyore and have for the majority of my existence on Earth.
Yeah, oh, God, I think I said my wife was either Eeyore or Piglet. I don't remember which one.
Just gonna diss on Kanga like that, huh?
Kanga didn't have much of a role in the movie.
I'm going beyond the movie as far as that goes. And my dogs freak out.
There you go. All right. Anything else, sir?
Apart from dogs making random noises, no. I mean, again, I liked it. I enjoyed it. I was emotionally affected by it. And given that I'm at least 30% dead inside, that's a hell of a feat. But
did you cry at the end?
I agree with you that it's more on the B level. It's I mean I read a few reviews that mentioned that while it takes the same kind of approach that the most recent Paddington movies have, and while it's not as good as those, it's it treads that same path relatively well.
I asked if you cried at the end of it.
At the very end, no, I got close at the end though. But by that point, you know what's coming. Like the randomness of him and Pooh wandering through the mist of the 100-acre wood, and him turning back to Pooh and Pooh asking, "Did you let me go?" And he looking back and going, "I suppose I did." Just twist the knife, why don't you?
That was fucking rough, dude. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh god, that killed me.
I think that's when I lost it.
And I mean, once he starts yelling at Pooh like that, at that point you just know where they're going. Like that gets over the top, but it's really that middle ground stuff that's just like the appropriate amount of, oh, this is who you used to be, and this is what you became, and boy, how did you wind up this way? And just like, oh, that's so many knives in the heart.
Let me throw this out there. You know, Screen Junkies just did a thing on their latest honest trailer was for Hook, and it was because of Christopher Robin, and the link is that we have a childhood figure in fiction that has now grown up and has lost his sense of wonder, and goes back to the place where it all started, to reclaim their sense of self. That's Hook in a nutshell. That's Christopher Robin in a nutshell. And I thought, Christopher Robin definitely did a better job of that than Hook did. But, like I said, I think my biggest problem with this is that I've seen this movie so many times before. I mean, granted, we know that there's only so many stories out there, in the world, but still, ugh.
Yeah, there's things they could have done with it that, again, I think would have helped. But on the whole, I mean, I'm not going to complain too much about it,
Yeah. I mean, look, it was fine. Like I said, it's no Beauty and the Beast, but it doesn't have to be. And it's again, it's kind of what I said about Lucasfilm. It's one of these deals where like they've got a list. They're working their way through the list, and as long as it's not a bomb, it's fine.
Yeah. Is there anything else I wanted to bring up? Yeah, I mean, again, just anything, since you brought up, what kind of got to me, again, anything with Christopher Robin and Pooh, specifically like in the 100-acre wood, or when he finds Ewan McGregor for the first time. I mean, this was stuff in the trailer, so I knew it was going to stab me. But when he looks at him and goes, "No, I don't see any cracks, just a few wrinkles," like just, oh. We do not deserve you. Like that type of thing. Just, yeah, again, I enjoyed it. It's not the best thing ever, but especially if you kind of grew up with Winnie the Pooh or you were a fan as a kid, it's what you want out of it, I think, essentially.
Yeah, I think it's a good way of looking at it. All right, let's move on here and talk about.
We go from something wholesome to something entirely materialistic.
Goddamn right. Here we go. Here come the here come the money.
As Mark looks for the button.
Here comes the money.
Here we go. Money talk.
Here comes the money. Money, 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 money.
Dollar, dollar. Dollar, dollar.
Hi, everybody. That's going to sound really weird, but it turns out Mark accidentally paused the recording.
Yeah, you know what I did? I instead of pausing "Here Comes the Money," I just paused the whole recording.
Okay, so you guys did not hear us talk about the money very briefly. This opened, I think it was number 2. It's at $32 million now on a $75 million budget. It'll probably wind up doing all right, but nothing to write home about. The top 10 remains unchanged. Ant-Man and the Wasp bumped up a little bit. Solo fell off. We all knew that was going to happen. As for critics, they all suck. There's a profound number of them who are just like, oh, God, this is so dingy and depressing and grim, and I just want to smack the... And they just, but we didn't happen to actually record any of that.
Oops.
So you're just going to have to take my word for it. A, it actually happened, and B, it was the usual stuff. Roger Moore is just terrible. Anyone who knows Roger Moore, I genuinely want you to hit him with something inconsequential. if you just have like a dead animal that you found that is still essentially solvent, throw it at him. This man is just terrible.
Folks, I'm exhausted. We're not doing plugs. Robert, take us out.
All right. Very briefly, we went over the schedule. Next week is the Meg. Mark and I will be back for that. You can find me on the 411 Ground and Pound radio show most Sundays. This last one we reviewed UFC 227. We're off this week. We're back next week to preview UFC Fight Night 135. I'm too burned out to care about it at the moment. Hopefully by the time that rolls around I will give a rat's ass. I don't anticipate it, but hopefully I do, because the show kind of sucks otherwise. And hopefully this won't happen next time. So our apologies for the technical issues. We love you and your continued support despite our constant screw-ups. We do not deserve you all. Thank you so very much. Until next time, for Mark, I'm Robert. Stay safe, and please continue to be well, be safe, and behave.
Let's see if I can manage to not screw this up.
I doubt it.
Take a moment and think about where you are. Now, let's dream about where you'd rather be. A Disney Cruise Line vacation, perhaps. Let us help. We'll add some ocean waves. Perfect. Now, the kids are playing at their own clubs. You're enjoying a romantic dinner. And tonight, the whole family will gather for fireworks over the ocean. More fireworks. When you're dreaming of the perfect vacation for the whole family, the difference is Disney. Visit DisneyCruise.com or call your travel agent today.